So I mean, I just wanted to like kind of like throw it off. The general thing that I'm gonna have a problem with, and the thing that Thor and I'm discussing here is like, do you think that LPL in terms of knowledge is just gonna be underrepresented at this World Championship?
Like, yes and no, because I obviously agree with the fact that, right, like no amount of research really can make up for the fact of that I've just seen, you know, like 100 games of all these teams. But I don't, maybe I'm just putting, you know, like the blind faith in. Obviously, you know, I'm an LPL caster, like I have ties to Riot, but I at least have faith that people like, you know, like Frost and like Spawn are going to do their due diligence. And I know for a fact Raz has watched every game of LPL, but kind of tangenting a little bit off your last topic about like Suning and LGD especially being underrepresented, you can especially see that in like the takes on these teams, even on like Reddit, where people are either extremely low on them and think, like you said, like Angel's going to get wrecked by Jensen, or even the opposite. I see some people coming in way too hot on like LGD and Suning, saying like, oh, these teams, you know, going to semifinals, maybe make finals. And I'm just like, I don't know if you guys been watching LPL, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you think that that's actually like out of the realm of possibility, especially considering the easy group that Suning has? Because I think that Suning, I don't think that like either team is going to make finals. I don't think LGD or Suning is going to make finals, but I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Suning made it to semis, because they have an easy group, right? You look at Group A, I can see them topping that group. G2 has not been specifically hot right now, and then also just knowing how G2 performs in groups, it could be weird. I mean, you could end up with a matchup like, you know, Suning versus Fnatic, or, you know, even Suning versus LGD could be a possibility coming into like quarters, right? So do you think that like Suning just like doesn't really have a shot at making semis? Do you think that this team has like some blaring weaknesses?
I think the fact that they got an easy group is kind of what's going to screw them over at the end, because the fact that they have an easy group means in quarters they could potentially face JDG, Domwad, TES. I even think DRX and Gen.G could be tough matchups for them. I honestly think they need to hope, like, luck out that they get one of the teams from Group C. But yeah, I think the fact that this group should be free, like, we're assuming right team like with slots in here. I think they can top the group from what I've seen from G2, but okay, then like JDG ends up second in their group and you face JDG. I'm just like, well, rest in peace, Suning.
Yeah. No, that's definitely the scary thing there. In terms of like LGD on that front, like how do you think that they actually match up in Group C? Because that's the team that I'm the most scared of coming in for LPL. I mean, obviously they're coming in as last seed, but just the way that they play, I feel like it could be potentially exploitable, especially through like topside. So like how confident do you feel in like LGD potentially being able to make it out of groups?
So I'll kind of start off building into it, because I didn't expect this team to make Worlds at all. I think they came into playoffs as one of our weakest teams, like easily. They got so lucky, in my opinion, they got matched against WE in first round, because stylistically they counter them so well with the fact that Teacher Mod WE's mid laner is absolutely terrible, and LGD's strongest point is mid jungle. And then even when I look at their run, they only beat two teams to get to Worlds, actually. They beat WE and they beat IG twice. And beating IG twice should be considered an accolade, but I mean, all three of us saw IG's games, right? Like that was, I don't feel like beating that IG team actually meant anything. But going into this group, I feel so good for LGD. I was so afraid for them, because when you look at the teams in their group, TSM, Fnatic especially, in my opinion, LGD's biggest strength, like I just said, is playing through mid jungle. They're very strong in the early game, especially like enabling Peanut. I think Peanut is kind of ignoring their series against Suning and some of their drafts, which I think were really questionable. I think he has such a good sense for like finding opportunities, especially around mid and bot, and enabling Shiate to get off on the map, start snowballing Kramer, and then kind of become this big team fight monster. I think TSM is kind of just the worst LGD in my opinion. And it's different in the sense that they transfer their mid jungle pressure to top side, but I don't think Broken Blade's really going to be able to pressure Longxing. Longxing has spent all year long facing Zoom, facing the Shy, facing 369. I think he absorbs pressure pretty well in the early game. I think it's in mid game when he starts having a lot of issues. And then we look at Fnatic and it's like, man, Selfmade and Nemesis don't do anything together. It looks like these guys don't even want to play together, which is so strange since they're
like best friends.
The same, like, Yeah, they come from like the same team before as well, right?
They played Mad Lions in an amateur, like when they were playing in the Spanish league. They were on that team. These guys, like, I think that's the main connection that got Selfmade into Fnatic, was like Nemesis just wanted to play with him. I mean, they duoed hundreds of games in season 9. But yeah, you can continue with your point. Just wanted to add some context,
dude. But that blows my mind because again, watching their finals, it's like, and even watching some of the other playoff series, they don't do anything together. And then when you look at the other lanes for Fnatic, it's like, I think Bwipo had a pretty good playoffs, and I like Bwipo as a player, but
same.
My problem with Fnatic is I try to like come up with, like at least like a short synopsis of how to define a team's play style. Again, like whether you want to say like mid-jungle early pressure, snowballing that like into Drakes or playing through side lanes, whatever. Fnatic, I don't know how to define the way they play. It just looks so like sporadic, so all over the place. It looks like they just need to hope that Selfmade can kind of make something happen in the enemy jungle, or one of Hylissang's roams like go off really nice on something like the Pike, and then they can snowball that. So I think that lack of identity like really screws them in this group. And then that kind of leads LGD versus Gen G, where I actually think Gen G can beat them. Yep, Gen G plays a much slower style. I think they're the slowest LCK team, and I think LGD really struggles against teams like that. I think despite the fact that LGD are very proactive, like in the first 10 minutes, they were one of our worst teams at transitioning past mid game. So once the first 3 outer turrets are down, LGD kind of default to that, I'll kind of say NA style, where you're just waiting for the Drakes to spawn and then like kind of posturing around it in an indecisive fashion. And I mean, if the enemy team engages on you, you just completely lose your mind. So I think LGD has a good chance in this group. I think it should be them and Gen G. TSM, man, NA.